This is how we make cottage cheese pancakes. It's simple, tasty, and healthy for moms and kids, modified for babies. The last time I made this recipe, it turned out so horribly, but it's worth attempting again because the ingredients in this recipe are excellent for preventing things like bone fractures and bone injuries in general. For moms, at least 1 in 3 women will suffer an osteoporotic fracture in their lifetime, often from preventable bone loss. For children, studies show up to 60% of boys and 40% of girls will break a bone during childhood. Nutrition plays a huge role in prevention. For babies, vitamin D deficiency is still causing rickets in infants, especially among breastfed babies without supplements. Welcome! Thanks for joining us on One Meal Fits All for Busy Moms. Are you unknowingly skipping key nutrients that both you and your kids need to prevent bone fractures? Today's recipe will offer a lot of protein, which makes up a major part of the mass and volume of bone. My name is Angel, and I've been a dietitian since 2012, and all of the information that's shared here today is for general purposes only, and it's not intended to replace any advice from your own healthcare provider. I recently had a pretty terrible experience making this recipe as a pancake. The kids had just gotten home from wherever they were and they were hungry for dinner, and I thought that I'd do something fun and make breakfast for dinner. As I made it, the whole experience was that it became sticky, burnt on one side but not cooked on the other side. It wouldn't flip, and then it just became this lumpy, gross mess of half-cooked batter on my pan. It's traumatizing just to think about it. So I'm gonna tell you the worst part in a little bit. This cottage cheese pancake recipe, you can actually double the recipe if you want to make more, but the way that I'm making it, it turns out to be maybe 8 small pancakes or so. All right, so I've got about here 3/4 cups of cottage cheese. You can buy any milk fat percentage that you feel serves your family the best. And some people don't really like the lumpy texture. I don't mind it. I think it actually makes it more airy. So I just keep it as is. But you could totally use a blender if you want to puree the cottage cheese first. In here, I'm mixing 2 eggs. And I think that the key to this recipe, if it turns out well the second time, is to mix the ingredients one by one as we go in to kind of keep it light and airy. And this recipe that I kind of modified a bit is from momsdish.com, and I hope that it turns out well. I'm also adding half a teaspoon of vanilla, and it gives that lovely aroma. There's 1 tablespoon of sugar here. You don't actually have to add sugar if you don't feel like it, because after, when it's done, you can add jam and you can serve it with maple syrup. So it's up to you whether you choose to add it now or not. There's half a tablespoon of baking powder and half a cup of flour. So here I'm using all-purpose flour. So all the ingredients are just gonna be mixed. It doesn't have to be super smooth. It just has to be incorporated. So I'm just more so using a fold technique with my spoon here to keep it light, airy, and fluffy. So you might notice that there's some oil on my table, and the oil isn't gonna go in. Instead, it's gonna be what I use to fry these cottage cheese pancakes with. Now, this time, I'm gonna use a non-stick pan. And I'm just gonna go to medium, because non-stick pans should usually just be on low heat or medium heat. And this is canola oil, which is great for high heat cooking. It has a high slump point. And for those of you who enjoy using a wooden spatula, you'll know that the oil is heated and ready when you put the wooden spatula into the oil and you see bubbles forming around the sides. Something fun you might want to consider if you're making this for kiddos at home is you can actually divide up this batter and add food coloring in if you want. So if it's St. Patrick's Day, maybe you want to add a couple drops of green food coloring so they're nice and green pancakes, or maybe red for Valentine's Day. People get very, very creative. Do you see those kind of micro bubbles beginning? Around? Yeah, you can see it better like this when you tilt the pan. So it's a sign that the oil is hot. Okay, fingers crossed, guys. that nice sizzle. So just like regular pancake batter, we're just going to leave a little bit of space in between. It smells really good right now because of the vanilla. It smelled really good last time too before I had a big meltdown, so I'm still bracing myself. You're going on this redemption journey with me without knowing it. You know how regular pancakes, what you're waiting for is like those air bubbles on the side? It looks like it's drying. And as you lift it up slightly, you can see what the bottom edge looks like. Let's just see. This is my first one, so let's just try and lift it up a little bit. Okay. It's looking very crispy and brown. I don't want it to burn. So I'm just going to turn down my heat ever so slightly. You don't realize this, but in my mind, in my heart right now, I'm breathing a huge sigh of relief. Oh my goodness. When I tell you the full story, you'll just be like, what? That happened to you? Yeah. I'm not proud of what happened. And this, my goodness, this was a much needed redemption. And then I'm probably going to switch a spatula after I flip this. It's looking really promising. Right now, as you look, like you'll see that it's crispy golden brown, looking very much like a pancake. And it's up to you whether or not like you want to tell your family what it is you're serving. Oftentimes it's nice just to serve, see their reaction, and then tell them how different these pancakes are. But I'll leave that up to you. And then, just like a regular pancake, like I might do a little toothpick test with the biggest one at the thickest part and see if there's any batter. Up close for me, it actually looks a little bit wet still, so I'm going to give it a little bit more time. As this is going, I can show you what I meant earlier when I said add food coloring. So, my kiddos actually really like it when I do little things like that. But here, I'm just going to add a couple drops of the green food coloring. More is usually okay because you want that vibrant color. So as you add it in, it becomes lighter. So be careful not to over mix and get the light and fluffiness out too much. But you do this and then now you'll have lovely green pancakes. Alright, so it's looking really still quite puffy and good. I'll plate it. Back to my story. At the peak of my frustration that night, I actually used my wooden spatula and I slammed the handle of my pan. It was a different pan. That's part of the story. I had used 3 different pans. I started with my usual pan to fry it. It's like a waterless cookware kind of pan that I used, like that I fried other things with before. And it just was getting all, like it was just getting burnt and lumpy and uncooked like I was telling you. And then I thought, okay, well maybe it's just this one off. I still have a ton of batter. I'm gonna try a second pan. And then I used a third pan and the same thing was happening. It did not look like this. It just looked awful, unedible, half-cooked batter, burnt and yet totally uncooked. And I slammed the handle so much that my kids who were just off on the side, like they became really quiet. They stood up and they just, in silence, didn't know what to do. And that was the worst part of the whole thing was they were hungry and tired, but then now they're scared because their mom, who usually I like to think I'm pretty even-tempered, it was just awful. Like I can't tell you how angry I felt. And I felt really bad for scaring them. And I don't know if anyone out there can relate to this, but I had a bit of a stressful day at work taking care of clients with really high needs, and I wasn't sure if everything was going to go well for them. I was concerned for them. I was still carrying a little bit of that with me. And because I work from home, I kind of took that and I had no transition period from ending work to kind of starting my mommy job of getting dinner ready while my husband was driving the kids home. And so all I wanted was an easy win. As it was not going well and I'm still trying to make it be better, I started to remember that when I looked at this recipe, I had read a bunch of reviews like I always do. And the reviews were these people saying, oh, this is so simple and delicious. This was like the easiest thing. I'm making these a couple times a week, and just these glowing remarks, which then, of course, now in my mind, I'm already feeling these feelings bubbling up. And then I recall these reviews, and all it did was make me feel even worse, because now I felt like I'm a bad cook, I'm a bad mom, I can't make something basic, and I just felt inferior on top of my baseline level of stress and frustration and guilt now over scaring my kids. So I was feeling a lot of feelings over what was supposed to be an easy dinner. And I guess I don't know if there's any other working moms out there that can kind of relate to this story of where you're just trying so hard to do so many things, and by the time it's dinner time, you're just feeling drained, exhausted, and you want things to go so well, and when they don't, it's just kind of really hard. If you can and you relate to that and you don't mind sharing, please feel free to share. It's not that misery loves company, it's that in solidarity we can chuckle about these things together and lighten the mood and realize that we're not alone in the universe. So this is how we make cottage cheese pancakes. This is how it's supposed to look. It's simple, tasty, and healthy for moms and kids, and modified for babies. There's probably enough, stuff on your mind. I don't want you to have to make 2 things or 3 things to feed your whole family. So hoping this works out for you. I'm soon going to share how we can modify it for your baby. But I guess one thing I'd like to know is, are you more of a pancake person or more of a waffle person? Because earlier when I said, hey, the same batter, if you so wanted to, you could just add a touch more oil and then throw it into a waffle maker and make cottage cheese waffles instead. And I'll just heat this up as I tell you this other story. So when I was in elementary school, I actually remembered that I was playing in the playground during recess or lunch, and what happened was that I was on these steps, and then I jumped up, but I somehow slipped on the rocks and landed on my elbow, and I actually ended up fracturing my elbow, and I had to be in a half cast for, I don't remember how long. It felt really long. It felt like at least maybe a month, enough time that my friends were signing my half cast at school and everything. I still have that. And I guess when I think back to the time, I remember that it was really frustrating for me, because even basic things like changing or showering and everything, suddenly I needed help. And at that age, I really wanted to do everything by myself. But now that I'm a mom, I realize how frustrating and annoying that was for my mom too, because now she needed to help me take a bath, and she needed to help me with basic things that she hadn't needed to help me with for a very, very long time. And I just feel like taking care of our bones is really, really important. And so some of the key nutrients here that I haven't mentioned yet is that the cottage cheese is really high in protein, the eggs are as well, and not only that, but it also contains phosphorus, and in Canada, where we fortify our dairy with vitamin D, there's also vitamin D in here. And so all of these are key building blocks. Protein acts as a scaffolding almost, it's the mass and the volume of the bone, and then the calcium, phosphorus, and vitamin D kind of overlay to form these healthy, strong bones for kids, and it helps to protect bones of adults as well. All right, so speaking of kids, if you have kids, I think it's really nice to give them the chance to make food. And I think a waffle maker is quite safe for them because it's electric. You still have to teach them the basics of don't touch the hot surface, and your kids best. So go over basic safety rules, but give them a chance to make simple meals. Generally speaking, what's different about a waffle batter and a pancake batter is the waffle batter just has a bit more oil in it. And so any pancake recipe you might have, you can actually just do that. I think for kids, it's really important to give them a chance to not only learn how to cook so that they know how to take care of themselves in the future, but it's also about contributing to the home and knowing that their actions make a difference, and that it's recognition in a certain way of just how much needs to be done in the family. And the more they feel like they're contributing to the family household, that actually builds a really nice dynamic, and it's something to talk about at the dinner table. Again, each family is different, but it's nice to have the dinner table conversation be around fun experiences like cooking together or different topics, rather than focusing on how much are the kids eating, whether or not they're eating, or using the family dinner time as a way to pick out things that didn't go so well or that you didn't like it. It's really important to keep the eating atmosphere for older kids to be a really positive one. And then if you're living in a household where you also have a baby, then the baby's sitting around the dinner table and witnessing the social dynamics and factors around eating as well. And that's all really, really important, you know? Notice like it's rising up quite a bit. And generally it takes about 4 minutes or so. The steaming should stop. The toothpick test. So a fun little green waffle. It works both ways. For babies 6 to 12 months old, we would use ingredients exactly the same, except that we wouldn't use the added sugar, so that you can control when it's appropriate to add that in. Usually it's after the first birthday where you can be a bit more liberal in using added sugar in recipes. And so we would just use everything the same. Once you've made that pancake or waffle, this is how I would modify it for babies. So you can cut the pancake into these strips of different sizes, and the general rule of thumb that I always give people is it should be around 2 fingers wide. So that's how it would look, is about 2 fingers wide, so that baby can hold it in their hand and bring it to their mouth. That's appropriate for sort of a 6-month-old baby, but ages can be challenging to use sometimes because it's all based on your baby's developmental ability. You really want to modify whatever size for your baby based on what developmental skills they have, because some babies may start solids as early as 4 months. Nobody recommends babies starting earlier than 4 months, and you really do need to assess for the readiness signs before you offer solid foods. And if you're ever unsure, you have to speak with your baby's doctor or public health nurse or healthcare team to just make sure that all the signs are there. Now, usually at around 9 months old is when babies develop the pincer grasp, which is where they bring their index finger and their thumb together, and that's when you will modify the size of these cottage cheese pancakes into little squares on their plate so that they can hold it like this and bring it to their mouth. But if a recipe like this kind of, for whatever reason, makes you feel a little bit uncomfortable, cottage cheese can be served just as is. So again, you're not creating a brand new meal for your child, you're simply just giving them the isolated ingredients. And cottage cheese can be served just as is to baby. If you feel like the lumps are too big, you could just mash it up as well. So that's another way that you can serve everybody around the table using the same ingredients and hopefully enjoy a nice time together. If you enjoyed this episode, please watch another One Meal Fits All or share with another mom. One step at a time, moms, you got this.